It's said that everyone has a book in them. Well, my next guest, Brian O'Dowd, who we'll welcome online in just a moment from Toronto in Canada, seems to have hit the jackpot. To date, he has written screenplays, but his first novel, A Wicklow Girl, is being likened by critics to some of the work of Ireland's greatest classic writers. Now, you can find out more at www.awicklowgirl.com. But I'd like you to now hear firsthand from Brian about his extraordinary journey. Brian, thank you indeed for joining me.
Oh, Jerry, thanks for having me on.
It's a real pleasure. I believe you're enjoying an extraordinary winter at the moment in Canada.
We're having a bad one. So sometimes it's not so bad, but just to get out of the house, we're surrounded by snow and ice. You need to have snowshoes on to walk on the. It's that bad. So I've seen a lot of them, but this is a bad one.
Right. Now, Brian, you left Dublin at the tender age of 23. Why were you bound for London? Did you have a plan?
Well, can I just give you the headline and then I'll go through the little details?
Okay.
So I'm not trying to boast or anything. I'm just what's possible. What can be possible if people are listening? You know, it's an interesting story. But I went from a school in Ringsend in Dublin, which is not a glamorous part of the town. You know, not to put it down, and I ended up a few years later in Ivy League, Duke University in North Carolina, working with publishing science research papers with 2 Nobel Prize winners.
Wow.
So that. So, you know, I've been lucky in my career, but to go back, I did leave Ireland at 23, lived in London for 5 years. So I'm very familiar with the landladies and the Kilburn High Road and all those rooms to rent. But then I went to a dance in Leicester Square.
Okay.
And I met my wife. And then we moved to Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. You've certainly travelled. Now, in the context of your book, A Wicklow Girl, you've been quoted as saying that moving away and mixing with others who have done the same worldwide, you recognise immigration from Ireland isn't the only form. The themes in your book reflect this.
The book fundamentally is it's a story about the return of the immigrant. It's a return of the immigrant. So what I'm saying is that we all have our own story as to why we left. And going home is something that we can imagine as emigrants. So it's a book about human relations.
Right.
It's a book about a road going astray in Dublin City. It's like, I have a few comments from some reviewers.
Okay.
A roller coaster ride from New Orleans to the village of Hoth. The novel describes the trauma of going back. The main character is a nightmare. You want to shout at him. A wicked story. This reviewer said it had Joycean influences. It's a pub crawl, a witty love story. Every sentence is a beauty and a beast. So these are all of these. The full reviews of these are on the website, awicklowgirl.com.
Right.
Of the reviewers.
Now, as you mentioned, you forged a career in the scientific world, and as an academic, you were also very creative. Now, Dublin has produced some great Nobel Prize winners for literature. Which writers do you particularly admire, Brian?
Well, okay, I'll tell you that in a minute, but I think one of the reasons that Dublin has produced the Irish writers is because of the big families. Like when I grew up, I have a big family. I think that the conversations within those families, and also when you can't get a word in edgeways in the big family, because I have 4 sisters and a brother, so then maybe you tend to write things down rather than try to get your point of view when there's so many other voices happening. So I think the conversations contribute to the writers that have come out of Dublin, particularly like the Nobel Prize winners. But to answer your question directly, I would say things like J.P. Dunleavy, Brian Moore, Roddy Doyle, perhaps, and then some of the non-Irish ones like maybe Thomas Hardy.
Right.
So I read a lot, but I do owe some things to the Irish writers that have gone before,
Okay, Brian.
If I could just say, I was in Dublin during the summer, and I was on Henry Street with my sister, and we were looking for a sports bar. And so we stopped and asked this man on the street, for the directions. And normally you would just get, it's up there, turn to the right. But this man, not only did he give us the directions, but he also gave us his opinion as to the pub that we were going to and the qualities and the fact that there was a better one around the corner or another one. And we were talking to him for about 10 minutes. I'm saying that that would only happen in Ireland. It would not occur in Toronto, for instance.
Yes.
I find Dublin to be an inspiring city to write about, but I wouldn't find Toronto to be inspiring.
Now, I know you're modest, but people writing for the first time would give their eye teeth for the reviews you've had. Can you tell us some of the reviews that you've had from some people? Well,
in the preface of the book, there's a very good review, and that's why I put it there. But it's from the writers' workshop in the UK, and that's on the website too. But if you buy the book, and it's a fabulous. You couldn't ask for a better. He said it was like he's been reviewing books for the writers' workshop for 10 years, and he said it's the best writing that he's had. So that was the top quality. And I've had some good reviews. There's a very good one on there from a book publisher in Prince Edward Island here in Canada, and I put that's also fabulous. And there's other people. It's a tour de force. It's a new voice in Irish literature. All of these things. I agree entirely for a first. I have to be honest with you that when you go on these online websites like some of the Amazons and stuff, you do see reviews that are not as flattering. But I didn't put those on. I'm not talking about those. But there are. Yes. I have to tell you that there are good ones, and but they're the ones I'm proud of. The other ones I'll take their advice. But perhaps underneath it all, that there is it is an Irish book in the history of Irish literature. So it borrows a lot from Irish literature. And it's perhaps that, people who have no connection to Ireland, although, not to say that people couldn't enjoy the book, but perhaps that kind of style of writing, they're not that familiar with, particularly maybe today, so that it might be an advantage to have some Irish connection, or to have read some of the even Maeve Binchy, these fabulous writers. But there is a kind of an Irish style, and if people from other countries read it and they get fed up with the style, they toss it away, and then they put a review on Amazon that's not so great,
Right. Now, I believe that you went to a boarding school with your brother, and you were actually fluent in Irish. I see there's a couple of Irish references throughout the book. Have you still got a grasp of the Oscailga?
Well, I tell you, myself and my brother, we were down in Waterford in Ring. The Gaeltacht down there. We spent the two of us spent a year. And you could only speak Irish there. I mean, they completely banned the Burla. You couldn't. But today, I have the couple of Focal. That's Focal. That would be all I have.
Right.
It's a pity, but when we, it was fabulous. Like my brother and I are only separated by a year. So we were like 10 and 11, and we were in this boarding school learning Irish. And when we came out and went back to the schools, that we really excelled in the Gaelic, and it helped to get through because at that time you had to get through your inter and your leaving and all that. It was compulsory Irish, so we had that advantage, and so it was a very valuable year, and also. we were at that very young age. We were away from home, so we developed some independent abilities that served us well later on, and it was just a great experience.
Indeed.
I've had some great experiences, I must say.
Indeed, and I won Princess Grace of Monaco. Your book is actually in the Princess Grace Library. A huge honour, and has sparked great interest in the book. Brian, listen, it's been lovely to speak with you. Details can be found at www.awicklowgirl.com. There's also a link on our website, irishradio.org, and the book is available, as you mentioned already, on Amazon, numerous other outlets as well. Brian,
it's Waterstones as well.
Oh, Waterstones as well, right? The famous Waterstones. Yeah. Now, Brian, it's been fascinating hearing about how the book came along and about your own journey in life. I know it's been successful and will continue to be so. And I understand that you'd like to actually see it on the big screen.
Yes, I mean, because I had a history of writing unsuccessful movie scripts. I have a whole stack of them in the basement somewhere. But it would be wonderful to sit down someday in a movie theater and see the book up there. I think if I can get a hold of Colin Farrell, I think he would be ideal to be the main character. But that's a dream.
Indeed. Brian, listen, I wish you all the luck in the world, and how appropriate to finish off with this classic, Larry Cunningham and Among the Wicklow Hills. Brian O'Dowd, listen, it's been lovely speaking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Jerry, thanks a lot for having me on. Thanks a lot.
A real pleasure, Brian.
I just received a letter from my home in Ireland. The scribble so familiar was my mother's feeble hand. A house that rang with music and of laughter now is still. Dear Daddy is so lonely now among the Wicklow Hills. As I gaze across the mountains, I relive a moment's joy. The same old Wicklow mountain where you rambled as a boy. Your photo as a child that pictures by my bedside still. And each night I pray that you'd come back home among the Wicklow Hills. Do you remember long ago when in summer you would stroll down where the crystal mountain streams to the slaty waters roll? You recall a young companion who talks about you still, and you know who she is waiting to among the Wicklow Hills. As I gaze across the mountains, I relive a moment's joy. The same old Wicklow mountains where you ramble as a boy. Your photo as a child that pictures by my bedside still. And each night I pray that you come back home upon the Wicklow Hills.